think we can start now, and we have, I think, enough participants, and I think people would join us, if they are a bit late. So my name is TOURIA El Glaaoui. I'm the founding director of 154 Contemporary African Art Fair. I would like to welcome you all tonight to join us. We're really looking forward to our conversation. I'm joined tonight by Anya Paintsil and DUDUBLOOM MORE. I will first introduce them both, and then they will walk us through the work they showed at the fair. And then we will follow by a discussion. Please do send us the question in the chat box. We will try to find time to answer them all. So let's begin. So Anya Paintsil, for the people who don't know you, I had the chance to have a real quick meeting the last day of the fair in London in real life, which was very exciting. So you're Welsh Ghanaian artist, primarily working with textile. From rug hooking to embroidery, your work evoke tactile tapestry on one hand and can constitute semi-sculptural intervention on the other. You completed your BA in Fine Art at the Manchester School of Art in 2020. And you're now represented by Ed Cross Fine Art. And this is how we were introduced to you at 154 last October. And we have DUDUBLOOM MORE, which is a South African artist who I had the chance to be with her on another panel for, I think, the New African. And you graduated from the Artist Proof Studio, APS in Johannesburg in 2018. You've participated since into various competitions, and you worked and shown your work in a number of group shows and art fairs. You've been awarded several prestigious residency programs in Italy and in South Africa, and you're now being represented by Berman Contemporary Gallery, which is also how we were introduced to this year at the fair in London at Somerset House. So for people who are absolutely not familiar with your work and were not able to discover those fantastic solo shows we had at 154 London, I would let you share some slides of your work that was shown at the fair and walk us through it. So maybe Anya will start and then we'll follow with Dudu. So you can share so Olivia will share your screen, sorry, she's in the background. And Anya, you can walk us through your work and then we'll do the same with Dudu.
Fab. So the work that I showed at the 154 was, apart from one, it was all made in 2020 and all made in lockdown, and all of it was from my time at university as well. So the self-portrait I showed was the oldest work I had, which I made in 2018, and that was the only piece that which is latch hooked. So I used two different methods called latch hook and punch needle embroidery when making my work, and this is the only one that was fully latch hooked. So this took about 6-7 months to make, because of the method that I use. It's quite painstaking and very similar to crochet braid hairstyle, if anyone's familiar with that method of Afro hairdressing. So yeah, if we can skip to the next slide, please. This is from 2019, and this piece of work was shown at the Christie's 154, powered by Christie's. So this was on show there in London as part of the 154. This is a punch needled rug on, well, it's not a rug, it's made using rug hooking methods, called punch needle embroidery, and is a mixture of wool, acrylic, cotton, Kanekal hair, and PU leather diary with Ghanaian Holy Bible written in Ghanaian language tree on the front. If we could skip to the next. This again is a fully punch needled piece which features my own hair that I cut off my head, and is a portrait of myself and one of my younger sisters, entitled in Welsh, which is my first language, which was, the piece is really an exploration of race and being a person of colour in an entirely white environment, which is because I grew up in North Wales. So So next slide, please. This is again fully punch needled with hand braided, just expressions braiding hair, and the title again is in Welsh, Mair Cilch Meithrin, which translates to Mair at nursery circle in Welsh. It's a portrait of one of my younger sisters again. If we could skip to the next. Again, a fully punch needled piece, which is called Your Mum Eats Like a Camel. I think this piece has a kind of duality in meanings for myself and when people view it, but I'm sometimes happy to delve into it, but sometimes not. But yeah. Next slide, please. This is a portrait of my dad. It's fully punch needled again, apart from the hair, which is human hair latch hooked, similar to the method of crochet braiding you'd find in Afro hairstyling. And yeah, next slide, sorry. This is Mam Mairavi, which is acrylic wool and human hair. Again, the hair is latch hooked in a similar way of crochet braids, and the piece is fully punch needled. And this is a portrait of me, one of my younger sisters, and our mum. So yeah, and this is Anya Annam, which is the largest work I've made to date. Fully punch needled with a few elements which are hooked, but this piece was again an exploration of race and ethnicity in rural areas of the UK, particularly looking at myself and having grown up in a rural Welsh community, an exploration of being confused and categorised and mistaken for every other person of colour who lived in like 50 miles of the area. So it was an exploration of depersonalisation, I suppose, that comes with being categorised as homogeneously a non-white blob. And so yeah, that was kind of where I was going with that. So yeah, that's the work I showed at the fair.
Yeah. So what I have to say for the people in the audience is like you had a wonderful solo show, and it really doesn't give, you know, justice to seeing all those wonderful pieces, you know, in one room, which was just amazing. And I know you're in your studio right now, and we can see two pieces behind you that are quite exciting as well in the back. I guess that you've done after the lockdown or after 154, you went those.
Well, that one was from the one, I had a photo shoot day before yesterday, so I'll put them up on the wall, but this one, which is closest to me, is recently finished. So yeah, I made that post 154. I kind of had a bit of it prior to 154, but I finished it afterwards. Yeah. Okay. And I'm working on a couple more things which are on the floor at the moment.
Well, we can't wait to see them all when they're done, maybe in 6 months. So Anya, can you walk us through, sorry, Dudu, can you walk us through your work? And I think we'll share your slides as well. So I think we have also a view on the solo show at the fair as well.
So this is about me, how I grew up. I don't know if I should read through all of it, but yeah.
Well, I know I did like a highlight of your wonderful bio, but like I'm sure that we can definitely, you know, it was written in the registration page, so I think people had a chance to read it. But please say anything that I think I missed, and I missed a few, probably good things about your biography.
No, I think you got everything. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is the booth that we're in. It was a solo booth. when I heard that I'd be doing a solo, I mean, it was definitely a surprise and kind of scary because, wow, the platform, but you know, the outcome was very worth it. Next slide, please. I wish I was there though. And then this is Mind Over Matter. It's one work from a series where I either sew or write text or both. And for me, this work, well, including the two types of techniques, it's like layering my feelings or my thoughts, and it was a way to, at the same time, unlayer them. Yeah, so having the three in those type of mixed match, it was just a way to explore what I was trying to say or what I was trying to feel, because sometimes I still struggle to know what I'm feeling. And also because I created all this work during the pandemic, with all the thoughts and anxiety and the not knowing of what could happen in the next day kind of thing, I had to stay grounded, and this is one of the works that kept me that way, and hence Mind Over Matter. I had to stay focused on what I was trying to do, as opposed to, you know, lose focus with everything else that was happening in the world. Next slide, please. That's of course, a zoom shot. Next slide, please. This is one of the first few works that I started with in this body of work. So in the beginning, when I was creating the work, it was just a matter of play, because I had just come from a residency and I was still trying to find my feet in what direction I was trying to take. And so this came out of play, and sewing for me is quite therapeutic, and you know, it's an action-based thing where you just do one thing over and over again. And so I found myself creating all these, to me, like constellations or stars. And yeah, I made quite a few of them. There's still quite a few hanging around with me back home. And yes, for me, it was definitely connecting some type of, I don't know, trying to connect the calm amongst the mess that we were in. Next slide, please. Next one. And then these happened when I was in the studio completely, because there was a point when our restrictions were loosened up and I was able to move between home and the studio. And that was great for me. And that's when I started to use the wool, because all of these are in wool. And I don't know, it was just to strengthen the thread, and at the same time with the shades, they were quite restricted. As much as I was able to move in between the two spaces, it's still, you know, there were still certain restrictions. Couldn't be around people. There was increase in gender-based violence at the time, and I mean, there was still a hike at the time, I think. So yeah, it was touching on that. Next slide, please. And that's the booth. I really wish I was there.
Well, I can tell you it was beautiful. I really enjoy it. And I think there was something with your work where all the audience had to come really close to see it, you know, so as much as it looked really slick, you know, you had like this proximity of the visitor with the work. And I mean, to be honest, you were discovering more layers of your work as soon as you were getting closer. So it was a beautiful experience. It looked beautiful. I can tell you, wish you were there too, to actually see it. But listen, that's great. At least the audience have a good idea of how, you know, your booth and what your work are about. My first question was to both of you, and because you both work with textile, I wanted to understand, you know, why you chose textile, and you know, you talked both about your technique, but it was more a question of why this medium rather than any other. So maybe we'll start with Anya, and then we'll go to Dudu.
I suppose the choice to work in textiles was pretty, I think in some ways kind of political for me, that I just wanted to promote and bring attention to skills that are associated with utility and womanhood and women's productivity outside the home. So working with rugs and like more, I suppose, textiles which are associated with utility as opposed to the decorative. I wanted to kind of make people reconsider these things as being fine art. Similar to the way that I work with hair, like I think working with textile in loads of different ways is an incredibly creative, laborious and technical way of working that is almost completely passed down through, at least in the way I work, passed down from woman to woman in family settings and not considered to be of any kind of intellectual value, which angers me. But yeah, I suppose that's the way I wanted to do it. So bringing the hair and rug hooking together as like a craft practice and a fine art practice, I suppose, was almost entirely a political decision, but also wanting to be able to repurpose and use skills that I'd learned outside of an arts education process, like environment, I suppose. So stuff like both skills I learned as a child from, like I taught myself to do hair when I was younger, but after painstakingly watching women braid my hair and braid other women's hair. And I was taught how to rug hook as a child by my grandma. So kind of blending these two heritages of skills from different sides of my identity and different sides of my heritage as well. So yeah, that was it for me.
And how about you, Dudu?
With textile, it's always been like a experimental medium for me. But at the same time, I remember as a child, I used to try and always sew my clothes or make them a bit tighter, or imagine that I'd eventually make my own. And the thing is, I'm attracted to the sense of it, of the touch, and how you have to pay attention to it. If you don't, it's gonna control you and it's gonna frustrate you. So, and in terms of the ideas of my work, in terms of mental health, you do have to pay attention to yourself and your triggers and how you can work around your anxieties or your mental health. And so I think when I started to work with thread especially, that's when I realized actually that's what it's touching back on. And even the idea that it's this long ending thing where it just keeps going, again, mental health is that, it can just keep going. And, but at the same time, you can put it into it if you're aware of it. So yeah, I just was drawn to it. And ended up enjoying the process of the constant sewing and the method of it.
And how about, obviously both of you are working and it seems that it's quite labor intensive, we talked with Anya at the fair, you told me that one piece took you 6 months to actually produce. While you have this time to produce a work, and you obviously putting yourself or representing yourself personally as a self-portrait or some of your close ones, while you're doing this work and there's so much time that has passed, how do this reflects into your work? Do you actually have changes while you're doing it, since it took you 6 months? Do you change your mind on some bits of the pieces of the production, or how does it actually work for you, Anya, when you start a work and it's going to take you 6 or 7 months to finish it?
I think I work in a way that's quite like organic, and the pieces definitely change as I go along, but I don't draw onto a background and just work freehand, so I will go in with my needle and just punch into the fabric and I'll have an idea in mind, sometimes a drawing or like a specific vision, but it always looks slightly different from the way that I'd envision it, just because as I'm going along, I'm finding a way to create what I am thinking of in my head with my tools, if you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
I suppose I don't think of it when I'm picturing something or drawing something. While I'm working out how to translate it from paper or image in my head to textile. So it definitely changes as I go along. But I suppose because I work a lot with images of my family and some images of friends and myself, I think like a lot of the works I make are informed by either like introspection or like nostalgia, I suppose, because like a lot of the work I've made features myself or my sister as children, and I have very specific memories in mind while I'm creating them, or specific ideas I have about our relationship at that time, or who I am or who they are at that point in time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and do you work on different ones at the same time? So you start one and then you continue on a second one that appeals to you more that day, for example, or you start on one and you not starting a new one until you finish the original one you started. How does it work?
If I'm working on a really big one, then I usually am just like, I'm sick of needle punching these like vast, just boring bits of color, if you know what I mean, because it's quite, and then sometimes I'll feel like I want to do like embroidery or work with something or sometimes that, you know, when you just like wake up and you're like, I've got an idea, and it's just kind of like that, and I need to start making it like immediately, which sounds like stupid, but it depends. Like if I don't have any other ideas, then I'll just work on, but I tend to want to start something immediately when I've thought about it, if you know what I mean. So sometimes I'll have a load of things on the go, sometimes I'll have one thing on the go, or sometimes I'll just have nothing on the go. But I generally do have something on the go, and generally more than one thing. But sometimes I get stuck with how things are going along, so then I'll tend to look at other projects until I think of a way in my head to figure out what I want to do, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and your work is even more special because it's directly related with your state of mind, your anxiety, etc. So it's also because it's time consuming. Are your state of mind different from the point where you start to the point where you're actually finishing and producing the work?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even if I'm in the middle of a certain piece, it could change because my mood might just change. So, I mean, I agree with Anya. I'm not planning it to a T. It's really what I feel at that moment. If I get an idea, I might obsess over it, working on different works at the same time. So, yeah, it changes. And also, especially with the types of layering that I'm trying to do, it's also a case of what would fit that particular feeling or that particular space or the environment or whatever the influence is at that certain time. Yeah, it's sometimes it surprises me too, like the way they do change. But at the same time, I can have like a vision of, okay, maybe I want a certain body of work to be or to feel in a certain way, because you have to explore certain feelings to a certain extent. But yeah, in general, nothing is completely linear. It changes over time.
Yeah, and given that both of your work is so quite personal, like how, and this is probably my hat of a commercial art fair here, how do you see it, in a commercial space or in an art fair, having spent so much time, with it, like how does it feel when it's being sold and it's going to someone's home, that it's part of you basically going home, or your mental state, or your personal, your picture of yourself or your siblings or things like that. How do you feel about that? Maybe Anya starts, so we're not talking to over each other.
I think like at first seeing like me work in a commercial space was really weird, because it was just kind of like, because loads of them have just been like in my house for like 2 years in bin bags, because I don't really like looking at them that much, and which sounds stupid, but like so much of my work is just like kind of, I have something in my brain I need to get out and put somewhere, if you know what I mean. And a lot of what I enjoy about making art and my practice is pushing my tools, making something that was in my head something else, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm happy people have them, but generally when I've made them, I'm not that interested in them anymore. Like, these are on the wall because I had a photo shoot, but like if I didn't, I wouldn't really look at them, because it's just like a bit weird, like to have a giant, like this is a self-portrait. If I like woke up every morning and there was an angry version of me looking at me, I just kind of feel like, why have you made that? And also, you know, when you just hate everything that you make, like I think it's kind of, I often don't like the way things look when I'm finished with them, which, and I'm really happy other people like them, but it's kind of just like, you can have it, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm not that attached to it. I'm glad people like them and want them, and it's nice to see them in a public space, but I feel, I don't know, it's just dead weird, especially because like loads of them, like I was living in like a tiny flat in Manchester and my boyfriend was working from home too over lockdown, so I'd made like pretty much everything that was at the fair on the kitchen floor. So I'd been jumping over them for months trying to like make a cup of tea, and like my boyfriend and I were just like, it was literally like walking on lava, jumping, trying to not like, so when they were on the wall, I was just kind of like, yeah, they are something, you know what I mean? Because working in isolation and not being able to take part in like stuff for ages kind of made me feel like I was just making them for nothing, if you know what I mean. I don't know, but I like making them for myself, but now they've become something for myself, which is for other people. And do you know what I mean?
Well, in case you don't like them, I mean, the good news is a lot of people like them. So they
Yeah, but it's weird when it's yourself, isn't it? Like, it's just kind of like, you don't want giant portraits of yourself in your house. Like, it's just a bit weird. You know what I mean? It sounds silly, but yeah. Sorry, I feel like I was a bit rambly.
No, don't worry. This is what it is about tonight. It's like about understanding a bit more how you work. How about you, Dudu? How does that work for you to see, you know, such a personal part of you on the wall and being sold? And I mean, I'm super excited. I didn't get to get Anya piece, but I got a Dudu Bloom piece, this London edition. But it must feel a bit odd, no? Like, because it's really your state of mind, you know, that is there.
Yeah, it's watching my babies go, you know. But at the same time, it's like, okay, so what I'm feeling is valid, you know. Okay, so what I'm feeling, people can relate to. I'm making something people want to keep. And also for me, my work is also about sharing, like coming out of this, you know, mental state at certain times. And it's just like, okay, so it's actually happening that I'm sharing. This is like the physicality of it. Like, it's literally going somewhere else. So yeah, and now that it's selling, like, wait. So it's a lot of what? Wow. Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, wow, I'm never going to see my babies again. That does be awkward sometimes, but at the same time, I understand why they need to go.
And how about the titles? You know, usually titles of works are usually pushed aside or not given a lot of attention, but in both of your case, your title of your work are quite part of your work in many ways. So I know one made me laugh, Anya. I mean, obviously I don't speak Welsh, you know, so I couldn't get all the titles, but the one title, Your Mum Eats Like a Camel, made me laugh as a title. But like, you know, can you tell us more about your title and how you choose them?
I suppose like, I don't have like a methodology apart from I did start intentionally titling some of my works in Welsh, which is my first language. Like if there's people who are watching who aren't from the UK, I'm a speaker of a minority British language called Welsh, which is spoken in Wales and only has, I think, like 250,000 speakers in the world. So it's a very, I suppose, like, it was a dying language for a time, but it's kind of been revived. But it is something that I look at in my work, is the identity of Welshness, and Welshness as opposed to Britishness is often more associated with whiteness. And throughout my life, when I've met people and have told them I'm a Welsh language speaker or spoken to them in Welsh, people are either like, where the hell did you learn that? Good for you for learning that. And the kind of, I wanted to reflect this, and also normalize having Black faces with Welsh titles, if you know what I mean, because people just think people like me are an impossibility or don't exist. So that was something that was quite meaningful to me in a lot of ways, especially the works which I titled in Welsh, Myra Cilchmeithrin and Nian Unig, which translate to Myra Nursery Circle and Only Us, were based on memories of myself being and my sister being little children and being in Welsh medium schools, so schools where we were taught in Welsh and were the only people of colour and were often victims of racism from both other students, so children, and like staff, so teachers would racially abusing us unknowingly. So, but I say unknowingly because people just were often unaware that what they were saying was racist or abusive towards us. So I think, I don't know, I just wanted to be like, I don't know, show that I am Welsh and kind of that I exist, if you know what I mean. And then the rest of my titles of my work are just kind of like, if they're based on memories, they're usually to do with that memory. So like, Your Mum Eats Like a Camel is to do with a childhood memory. And others, I think they're just kind of like, just how I'm working on a new piece at the moment, which has a funny title, which is called Beware the Woman Dog and Her Babies. And that title kind of came into my head before I made the work because it's a very specific memory. So yeah.
Well, we can't wait to see it. And Dudu, what about the titles like Mind Over Matter for you, or you know, speaking from a place of, I think one is called how did you choose them, and are they as important as your work itself?
Yeah, mind over matter, you know what they say, you gotta do the thing and forget your mind, you know. So it depends where I get the titles from. Sometimes it's while I'm writing and it's like, oh, something hits me. Sometimes it's from, you know, something somebody says, or, you know, while I'm busy doing research, then I'll catch on to it. But it's always about the personal or the emotional or the mental health of it. Yeah, very intentional titles. And in terms of speaking from a place of, actually, if I can talk about that, it was during the increase of gender-based violence in SA, and as a Black woman, you know, feeling these emotions, because when I see another Black woman being killed just solely for being a Black woman, you know, and at the same time, society is blaming it on you. It's like you're speaking from a place of, I don't want to say nowhere, but from emptiness, because what you're saying is, you're not saying anything. Nobody's listening to you. It's speaking from a place of fear and sadness and anger and trying to, you know, push through anyway. But it's so silent. The noise is so silent that you're screaming. That's why I left it at speaking from a place of you know. So yeah, the titles are always intentional, always about what is happening in and around me.
Mm.
Mm.
And one question that I had you both, and I don't know for the people who picked us, in the middle of the conversation, as I said in the beginning, you both recently graduated. When you think about it, one finished in 2018, the other one in 2019. How do you feel this transition is going, from, this educational space to, I guess, moving on to representation by a gallery? Are you feeling comfortable with it? Or what are your thoughts on this process? Maybe you go, Dudu. So you go first.
Yeah, I mean, it was scary because you hear so many things about representation, you get so many opinions about it, and also you're fresh from graduating. You've this whole time you were fighting and being independent. So yeah, but at the same time, pre-graduation, I was always, trying to get my work out there. So I kind of knew it was coming. It was just a matter of time. But at the same time, I knew I can't just jump into it. I had to research and also really decide what my vision was, really remember what I'm doing this for. So yeah, it's a process. You choose your team members, you choose your partners in crime, so it's a process, because even in choosing your partners in crime, you learn each other, you learn how to communicate, you learn each other's strengths and weaknesses. So I would say, comparing between the independent and the represented, I mean, I think it's nice to not have to juggle a lot at the same time. Because, for instance, with this art fair, I wasn't gonna be able to do it on my own. The team really was really patient with me, and that's what I liked about my team, is that I needed people who are patient with me. So I wasn't going to be able to do this on my own. The tricky part is, I'm naturally an independent person, so sometimes I'm just like, do I really have to say something to, the team? Do I have to? But I do, because, that's that's how it's going to work, in the end. So yeah, the transition, it's a process. You learn each other. You also learn yourself in the process. It's not that easy, but it works. Okay. So far, it's really working.
Well, it worked for us. How about you, Anya? How did you feel that space transitioning with having representation?
Cracking. I proper love it. I love working with my gallerist. I think we've got a great partnership. He first got in contact with me when I was still at uni, so it was kind of, I don't know. At first I thought, like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Like, it was just because I was I just started third year, and then at uni, and I wanted to be a professional artist, but I was kind of like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. You know what I mean? So when it happened, I was like, this can't be happening. So I was a bit like, I don't know, but I much prefer working with my gallerist to being at uni. Like, I think I enjoyed the time of being at university. I mean, having the time to dedicate a portion of my life just to learning about creative arts and that kind of thing. But I'm much happier the way things are now. Like, I didn't really enjoy art school that much, so this is the perfect way for me. And also for me, like, my gallerist found me on Instagram, so I'm like dead rubbish at like networking and that. So like having to go to shows and like do all this stuff to like meet people to get noticed. Like, I'm so lucky that I've bypassed that, because I hate going places. You know what I mean? And I'm awful at meeting new people, and I think I often make a really bad impression of like when I meet people in real life. So it's nice to have the internet, if you know what I mean. So
No, but it's true that the internet and the social media has completely changed, this for everyone from, artists who are based, in Europe or in the US, but also a lot for artists based on the continent, to be able to be discovered
absolutely.
on Instagram and on Facebook. I think it's not the first story that I heard where this happened, and it materialized into a very good, relationship between the gallery and the artist. So I know it's a bit crazy to ask this question during these crazy times, but do you have any plans and work coming up, in the next couple of months when I guess we'll be a bit more free? Is there big plans for you, Anya, already in place of exhibitions or
Yeah,
of things that
there
you're
is some,
preparing?
there's quite a few things going on, but I'm not sure if I'm allowed to announce them until they're officially announced,
Okay.
unfortunately. But keep an
Oh,
eye on my Instagram
okay.
and news there.
And how about you, Dudu?
Yeah, for now, still playing, the red and black bug bit me harder than I thought. So, but even before the pandemic, there was always the plans of, getting into residencies and having to travel and different spaces. So that is also in the lines, but the restrictions are still a bit tight. But that, for me, that's my biggest next step, but continuing to participate and work on my work.
Yeah. So we have only 15 minutes left, so we have a few questions, and I think it will be a good time to maybe move to the questions and see what your fans are you are asking tonight. So so one, I think we had this discussion, Dudu, before. It's to Sevo Landu, who's a visual artist from Johannesburg, and he has those questions for Dudu Bloom, but basically they really are working for both of you, and I think they're very good questions. So first of all, the first question is, what does Dudu Bloom's work represent, and what art does the identity herself? What art does she identify herself with? So that's the first question.
I tell people abstract, multidisciplinary mostly. But what's the first part of the question?
What does her work represent?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think it represents vulnerability. It represents mental health, of course. It represents, mostly that. The fact that my work always comes out soft is really important to me also, because the world can be really hard on every one of us. So yeah, it's a way for me also to be vulnerable. So I think that's what it represents. And
that's a question for you from also to Sevo Landu, but I think I would love to hear Anya's thought on this as well. Is how did your practice change over time? For example, in the case of Anya, did you always work with textile? Did you had one point in school where you were experimented on other things, or textile was always your medium?
I used to paint, but I'm not that good at it. I suppose I've always had a textile practice, I suppose. Like, I hadn't formally studied art until I started my degree, so I'd just done like a portfolio course, and which was kind of like broad-based different things. So I suppose I did like a lot of like rubbish art. I don't know, like I used to paint, but not very well. And I studied illustration for the first year of my degree, because I was kind of like, I want to have something I can make money from for definite. Like, I want to have a career that is doing something that I like. So I suppose I did a lot of drawing, a lot of like digital art, that kind of thing. And then by the end of the first year, I was just like, I just want to do whatever I want. So kind of my artistic practice, I suppose, was always kind of different from my education practice in some ways. So like, this had been going on in the background, but never part of my school work. I guess. So I've been making work in textiles, I suppose, for like nearly 10 years-ish. So yeah, I guess, I suppose, yeah, that's it, sorry.
Okay. And how about you, Dudu? Like, did you change over time? Your practice has changed? Like, so young too.
I feel like it changes a lot. I like experimenting, so I started with drawing, started printmaking. At some point, I was painting. So all of them come in in one way or the other. But yeah, with the text and the thread, that always shows up, like it always comes back to me. So yeah, no, it changes, it gets stronger. Some points, at some parts it's weaker. It changes, yeah.
Well, as your journey is very still fresh, this is a good question. He's asking, is it a he, Tusevo? Is it a he, Tusevo? Yeah, Tusevo is asking, is the artist life lonely? And what does you do to counteract it?
I don't mind being alone. I don't.
And I think from Anya saying, she said earlier that you don't mind being alone either.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't mind.
But I like things. So good. This is the reason why I've chosen this life.
I mean, there's a difference between the lonely and being alone. I don't think it's lonely. You just spend a lot of time alone. Yeah, you build a lot of networks and teams around you in the spaces, so somehow you always have support, and I have support, both family, friends, spaces. So yeah, I hardly ever lonely, just spend a lot of time alone.
And this one is a good one as well. It's like, what is the best piece of advice you would give to an emerging artist? I guess still in school, because we all
keep going. Hey, it's tough. Vision, eye on the prize, and yeah, that prize is yours. It doesn't matter. Nobody can tell you what it is. You have to decide what it is. Eye on the prize and keep working for it. That easier said than done, but eye on the prize.
And how about you, Anya? Would you say something different?
I would say, make work that you like, and you don't always have to listen to other people and just graft. You know what I mean? Like, just proper work hard, and that's it, really.
So you have a question that is a good one about the choice of colors in your textile works. Why, for example, you using mainly red and black, for example? Why are those two colors so prominent in your work?
Honestly, in the beginning, when I just started creating, that's what happened. But as I kept using the colors, I realized they created a certain balance. Everything was not balanced, in the beginning of the lockdown, with all the uncertainty. But with red, it's a bit more vibrant, it's a bit more passionate. With the black, it's quite the neutral color. But also it's very dark. We know how we associate black, and it was quite the dark time. So yeah, I think with the black, it was just when things were a bit more scary, when things were the most uncertain. In that time also, in terms of the masculine feeling that we were under, yeah, that was the black. And then the red, you continue, as much as things were tough, you wake up every morning and you get out of bed and see what you can do. So the red represented that mostly. Yeah.
And Anya, I have a question for you. What is your current piece of work you're working on? Is it a secret too?
It's not a secret. Well, do you want to see it?
Yes.
It's kind of like in progress. Well, actually, it looks a bit weird. Hang on. I'm kind of, it's very, very like, sorry, So this is how like my pieces start basically. So this is a piece of Hessian, and this is actually a dog. And a lot of my work is about like just random kind of memories, I suppose, or things which have been like family mythologies or family funny things or family traumas. And this particular one is of my little brother Levi, and me, I might put me in it. I'm not sure if I'm going to put me in it, but we were in Ghana and he decided he was going to escort me to go to the night market. He was 7 at the time and I was 19. So he was escorting me to the night market to go and get some food. And he was walking in front of me and was just kind of like, yeah, I'm the man escorting women, you know what I mean? And then we saw a dog. And Levi became very, very afraid and jumped on my back and started screaming, "A woman dog and her babies are after us." So I thought it was just the most ridiculous thing ever. So it's just that, I guess. So yeah.
So that's where the title comes from.
Yeah,
then.
yeah. So a lot of my work is about silly things. A lot of my work is about, I don't know, I like my work to have humor as well as discussing like serious issues, I guess. So that's a kind of,
yeah. So we're going to take probably the last question from the audience, and it's for both of you. Is after making a lot of artworks, do you feel the need to take a break, and why?
Yes, because you put in energy, you put in work. You know, you do need a break. You're human. And I think that's something I had to learn also. I was always one of those, don't stop, you gotta keep going. But your body will tell you, are you sure? You know, so you do need to listen to your body. You do need to take a break. And also in that time, you are able to, you know, start to absorb your new spaces again. And then in that way, you can now, again, start working and, you know, starting afresh. Yeah, you do need a break. Your body will tell you.
How about you, Anya?
Kind of no, I don't know, it depends. It depends like how I'm feeling. Sometimes I'll make a lot of artworks in one go, and sometimes I'll make it just depends. Like it depends if I've got an idea or not, because I tend to like, if I have an idea, I want to make it straight away. So it just depends. Like if I don't have any ideas and I want to just like sit on the sofa and play Animal Crossing, then I'll do it. But if I have stuff I want to do, then I'll do it, if you know what I mean.
Okay, so break and no break. You both have different views on the on like having short breaks. But listen, guys, we're gonna end this discussion, which was for me, you know, really enjoyable, and to be honest, like to have you both on this panel, having known the success you had at 154, and I mean you're both so young in many ways, you know, coming out of school, and I think you're a huge role model for a lot of people coming out from their different programs and being able to participate to art fairs and actually having your work enjoyed by a lot of people this fall. So I wanted to thank you for accepting this panel, and I hope that, you know, we'll see you again at the fair and in many other places in the world in the next few months. But thank you so much for being part of this talk, and I hope we'll have a chance to meet again in real life soon.
Thanks for having me on, and thanks for everybody
watching. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for watching.
Bye. Take care.
Bye. Bye.